again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, gets left center. Perry scores! Corey Perry!
Ilya able to shake away from Solani. It's given away to Solani around in front. Score! Teemu Solani with the steal.
Three in the face, 1-1. Score! Off the floor! Paul Kariya!
Oh man, I feel like recent, but like in the last few years, but I honestly can't. It's not as traumatizing now. You know what I'm saying? Like I can remember when I was stung by a bee as a kid. Now it's, I don't know, probably within the last 3 years, maybe.
I was stung by a bee this morning.
The
And to
beach.
your point, to your point, I don't think I realized that I had been stung by a bee.
Yeah.
Until I saw a dead bee
That's how
where
it
my
goes now.
leg had been. And then all of a sudden I looked and I just had a stinger like sticking out of my leg. And I was like, oh, and then I broke the golden rule, which is you're never supposed to pull the stinger out because you shoot the rest of the venom or whatever it is into your leg that way.
Yeah,
you're
then
just
it starts
supposed to
to hurt.
rake it. But like I was thinking about it and like I don't think I've been stung by a bee in like 10 plus years. And I honestly don't think I've been stung by a bee more than 4 times in my entire life, if that. Like, I don't know if that's like a normal number or not, but like it's not a thing that's happened to me a lot. And it was just something random that I was like, oh my God, dude, I got stung by a bee today. And I haven't been stung by a bee in like 10 years at least.
Brought back some memories.
Bro, I'm pretty sure the last time I was stung by a bee was before my parents moved. And that was forever ago. That was,
Oh,
God, at this
less
point, that's probably over 10 years, yeah.
less bees. Save the bees. Then maybe you'll get stung more.
Hey, yeah, that's right. That's the lesson here, folks. Is what
save the
matters
bees.
more than anything is save the bees so that they can then turn their ire on us and sting us appropriately.
Yep.
Do they have bees in Canada? Do you guys have like sand bees, but instead of like black and yellow, they're like blue and white?
Honestly, part of that sounds
Snow bees?
incredibly. Yeah, snow bees doesn't. Sand bees, just the way it comes off the tongue sounds incredibly offensive.
Sand bees.
It's just I don't know. There's something about it. No, I have a wasp nest. I think that's in like above my garage. I've been trying to figure it out.
See, that's no.
So no, I've been
That's a
trying to
terrible
figure
idea.
it out. I've been trying to figure it out.
You
because
move now. That's their
no, but
house.
I don't know. So there, it's like it's
know?
okay. So there's brick for the outside of the house, and there's a little crack in it. I've seen wasps fly around the garage
Yeah, dude,
and then
there's
go into the
wasps
crack,
in there.
but
There's
not
for sure
enough.
wasps in there.
Not enough that I feel like there's a wasp nest in it. Just like occasionally they just kind of fly into the crack. Like I've had a
Do you
wasp
have like
nest.
a power washer?
Yeah, I'm gonna get in
You
there.
should power wash through the crack.
I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm waiting
Just
to
see what happens.
I'm waiting.
Like I
to
would
see
definitely
this.
go get one of those like hazmat suits,
Yeah,
or like
yeah.
a fireproof suit, and then just power wash the shit out. There you go. Now we're cooking.
Yeah,
Yep,
I'll just tell them, listen, we're just power washing the bricks here. That's all. You won't know. Tell me what happens when you power wash in that crack. I'm gonna stand back here. But...
Yeah, exactly. Why do you have a camera? It doesn't matter. Just do it. Shut up.
Yeah.
I was watching people power wash like driveways and sidewalks and stuff.
Yeah.
Because like that's one of those new like. It's actually pretty cool. Like of all the like hustle culture, grind culture, grossness that has come out of it, one of the good things is that like people now like just go do their shit for free and film it.
Yeah,
and
like
put it online and be like,
shit.
look at how good of a job we've done. Yeah. And this one was these two brothers who were just like power washing. They were just going up to old people's homes. Or the videos I saw were old people. They were just going up to these people's houses and being like, hey, we want to power wash your shit for free.
Yeah,
And the people are
they
like, I
just
don't
take their
understand why is it for
Sunday
free?
and they do it for free, and then they put it on social media. Then they get people from that. It doesn't cost
Yeah.
them anything to do it.
Which
So
rules? Because like
yeah, it's awesome.
the advertisement is a good deed, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Also, like they had like a buffer, like a push
Yeah, I've
buffer
seen that. Yeah,
that they were
yeah,
going over the driveway with, and I was like, that's wild.
yeah, man. It's evolved.
Yeah.
But
I don't know
let's
why
tell
these
people why
episodes
we're
are
here.
3 hours.
Let's tell people
Says
why
we
we're
do
here.
this for 20
We said last time we'll only be back before the draft if something happens, and then I think how was it, a couple days later something happened.
Mm-hmm.
It must
Not
have
only
been.
that, but the thing that I really appreciate about this trade, you have to give it up when you get owned. Is I was like, I don't really want to make a trade unless it's like an obvious first liner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think at this point, it is safe to say that Chris Kreider is not a lock first liner.
No.
But I do think there is something to the caveat of he is a lock for the first power play.
Yep.
And
For
that
sure.
kind of on its own makes it worth it. So like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the trade. I like the acquisition. But the one thing I said to you, the one thing that worries me and would turn me off from the trade is if this was the only move that's done in the offseason. Like if this was the big move where it was just Kreider that came in, and then Verbeek hangs his hat on saying, like, this is the big move I made. This is what I was talking about. This is the guy I'm going out to get.
but like, I'll say this. If it was the only big move he tried to make, I would be concerned.
Sure.
Because look,
Sure.
if he goes into free agency and he goes, this is what I'm willing to try to give to Mitch Marner, and Mitch Marner's like, I want to go somewhere else. There's nothing you can do about that.
Yep. No, that's fair.
If he calls Jim Nill and he's like, this is what I'm willing to offer, I'm willing to go up a little bit more, but for some reason Jim Nill doesn't like the offer, doesn't want to trade to the West, whatever it is, there's nothing you can do about that. And that is like the one thing about it for me is adding Chris Kreider cannot be the only move they make. But if it ends up being the only make because people that have free will decided to do other things, right? Because, like, look, if you want Mitch Marner, offer Mitch Marner the Connor McDavid deal. Just tell him we're going to give you 7 years by $16 million. And he's gonna take it. Like, I don't see him turning down $16 million to play in Anaheim. But he's not a $16 million player. So you don't want Verbeek to do something stupid like that.
Yeah.
You could make a dumb trade for Jason Robertson. That would be very easy for Jim Nill to go, like, you know, check his fucking caller ID, make sure it's a real guy. Like, is this really Pat Verbeek? You know, what happened on the third of whatever, like the third hole at this golf course when we were playing together, right? Like, I don't believe, like, this feels like a prank that he just says yes to, right? Like, you're just like, we'll give you Leo Carlson. Oh, okay, sure. But you don't want him doing those things. So as long as he makes like what we can consider to be, and because of, you know, insider culture and leak culture, culture feels almost like a weird word to use there, but, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, because we have this like insider industrial complex, we're gonna find out if they were really in these meetings. We've already started to see rumors about Anaheim being willing to offer over $14 million, or at least $14 million for Mitch Marner. We've seen Jeff Merrick say, wouldn't be surprised if they're in on Jason Robertson. Makes a lot of sense. Like,
Strickland say that Terry's available, which we've speculated would be a piece, right?
So I think the one good thing, if you're an Anaheim fan right now, is just this idea of, like, he's trying to make things happen. And so far, he hasn't made a bad trade.
No.
Like, people are mad about the Trouba trade, and some people are mad about the Kreider trade, because why are we helping New York get out from under this cap hit without getting more in return? And it's just like, I don't want to do that. I just don't care that much about that, because all we did is give up a prospect who I liked. I straight up said I would have rather traded Pastujov over Carey Terrence. But I get that like Pastujov is probably closer to playing, so like that part of it makes more sense. Pastujov is going to be into the team fast, but like all we did is give them a prospect that we have a lot of prospects. That's been the big part of us being bad for so long. We have a ton of prospects that have legitimate upside, and they moved up 15 spots in the draft. And we got a guy who should pretty much be a lock for 25 goals, 8 of which are going to be on the power play. We don't have anybody who plays the way that he plays. We don't have anybody who has the skill set that he has. Like, we were kind of using Killorn and kind of using Strome in those roles, but that's not
it was
who
a
those guys
revolving door all season.
It wasn't. Yeah, it's not.
The Cutter came in and at the end and kind of started to take over that role as the shooter on the power play, but we had McTavish there, and it just nobody's fit in that role.
Right. And Kreider isn't going to be the shooter. Kreider is going to be he's going to go into the Perry role. You know, he's going to go to the front of the net. He's going to be right there the whole time. He's going to tip pucks. He's going to cause chaos. He's going to do that. Like they said, he's still got good straight line speed. He plays with some physicality. You know, I mean, I was talking to Josh about this, who wrote with us for a little bit at Anaheim Calling. You know, he still hits me up every now and then to talk about this stuff. And one of the things he was like, you know, should we go after Bennett in free agency because of the physicality and the way he plays? Like, that is something this team doesn't have right now. And I was like, sure, I understand that point. This team isn't ready. This is something me and you have talked about. We're not a Sam Bennett away. But we have Chris Kreider now. And Chris Kreider plays with a little bit of nastiness to him. We've got Gudas. We've got Trouba. We've got Vetrano. We've got Strome. We've got McTavish. These
Solberg's
guys
on the way.
A little bit of Like, I don't think we're going to be hurting for physicality and edge in the near future. I don't think that's going to be a concern. I think adding a player like Chris Kreider does help with that a little bit, because he is a guy who we've seen get physical and get into scrums and just, you know, kind of stick his face in there and bother people and stuff. I don't think he's going to do necessarily as much of the like overt physicality that like a Sam Bennett gets into, or a Luosterainen, or even an Aaron Ekblad. But like, he's going to have some of that in his game, and that's going to be able to help him. So like, you know, I guess for me, like, it's crazy that like there are people who are down on this trade, because I don't think Anaheim loses anything in this trade. No.
But yeah, I mean, it's a straight plus acquisition for the Ducks to bring in a guy that is going to. There's a clear path for where he can be a net positive for this team, and it didn't cost you really anything. Like you mentioned, like we have a deep prospect pool. Carey Terrence for me is outside the top 10 prospects for the Ducks currently.
Is he even in your top 10?
He's close. Like he'd be like 11, 12, and you can make the argument with all those guys kind of in that mix that he could be 10 or maybe 9. But for me, he wouldn't be. And if you're giving up that, and like you said, 15 spots in the draft. In the third round, or from third to fourth,
they're
right?
Moving from the early fourth into the late third.
Yeah, and with the Ducks' track record of drafting kind of in that range, I'm not too worried about moving 15 spots down and losing Carey Terrence to get somebody you don't have in Chris Kreider, and a guy that can clearly impact this team in a place that they've struggled. So yeah, man, I like it. Yeah, like I understand sort of where people come from with the Trouba and Kreider stuff, just saying, okay, you're bailing the Rangers out. And from what we've seen in the past, guys who make as much as Trouba and Kreider do, you can tend to get a decent amount. But I feel like that trend in some ways has shifted a little bit. And I don't think Kreider and Trouba necessarily fit that straight cap dump that we've seen. There are other teams that would be interested in both of those guys. As legitimate,
we're interested in both of those guys
as legitimate pieces of their team. So it's not a straight cap dump. It's not a guy who's injured. It's not a guy who's a fourth liner who's making $6-7 million. It's a bit different than that. So you can't lump those guys in just because they're on expensive contracts and maybe they're not exactly worth those expensive contracts. They're not the same as a traditional cap dump. So I feel like it's a little bit unfair to be like, oh, Pat Verbeek is just bailing out Chris Drury here. Well, yes, in theory he is, but Trouba makes this team better. I know there's arguments, people hearing me say that and not being too happy about that. And I think Chris Kreider makes this team better as well. And
I think Chris Kreider is fairly inarguable. I
mean,
think
even if
willing to like have the conversation about Trouba has lost a step, his mobility has gone down, his physicality at times takes him out of the play. He's not the offensive player he wants. Like, we can have that conversation. Like, you're wrong, but we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any of that with Chris Kreider.
It's just his last season.
Kreider,
this past season, that's it.
And here's the thing. I feel like the only reason to be like worried about the Chris Kreider thing and like he's not going to be good enough is if you think you're getting a 50-goal guy.
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're honest with yourself about the player that he is, which is not a 50-goal guy, I don't know how you think the Anaheim is losing this trade.
No.
15 spots in the draft. And again, like, Carey Terrence, I think, is similar in some ways to, like, Nico Miatovic. Mm-hmm. So, like, if you kind of want to say that there's a little bit of an overlap there, plus you got a guy...
Nathan Gauthier.
You've got Gauthier. You can even say, like, Sam Colangelo popping, Nestorenko coming in. Like, we're going to have a bunch of draft picks this year. Like, we're going to have an opportunity to get another guy with a similar upside or even just a similar profile to Carey Terrence. And I really do think that this is a thing that we should be excited about is he is closer to home. And that is a cool thing because Carey Terrence is Indigenous. He did grow up on a reservation. And the reservation that he grew up on is in northern New York, like right next to the Canadian border. So like he's not right by home, but he's a lot closer than he is now.
Yeah.
And like, that's cool, man. Like
he's playing in Erie too as well.
Yeah,
so
like if he makes the team in 3 years, like he can then like go to the res and like just be Carey Terrence, NHL player, and just like show like who doesn't love that shit, man? Everybody loves when an NHL player from their area comes back.
Yeah, it's a good story for him.
Cool.
I'm happy for the kid. I think it makes sense for the Rangers to go out and grab him as just a fit for their organization and
also,
a guy.
Real quick, I need to say this. This matters to me. There is no losing a trade with Chris Drury. We quote unquote bailed them out on the Jacob Trouba trade, and then he went out and got Will Borgen and Carson Soucy and signed them to Soucy already had a big deal, already on a bad contract, and he signed Will Borgen to an insane contract. And he already got Vakanainen in the Trouba trade. So he's now spending like probably $10 million on 3 separate bottom pair defensemen.
Yeah, it's wild.
Why do we think Chris Drury is going to do anything positive with this stuff? Just take the cheap deal, take the good player, call it a day. This isn't, you know what I mean? Like, Chris Drury's not good at this. He has shown time and time again that he is not a good GM. One of the first things he did when he got to the Rangers was trade away Pavel Buchnevich for Sammy Blais, Ryan Reeves, and like a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
Bro, I'm not afraid of him.
Yeah.
You can't make me be afraid of that dude. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, even if you don't like necessarily what Trouba's done for Anaheim, again, it's not like it cost them anything significant to bring Jacob Trouba to the organization. And again, the same can be said for Kreider. Kreider could come out next year, score under 20 goals. It'll be disappointing, but it's not like it costs the Ducks anything significant to try and see how it goes. Right. And there's a fit for Chris Kreider here. There's a lot of former teammates here. Was one of his best buddies, Trevor Zegras, here in the organization. There's just a lot that makes sense about the deal. And yeah, Chris Kreider had a tough season last year. I mean, he still scored 22 goals, but he only had 8 assists, had 30 points in 68 games. That's what a lot of people are harping on right now. But the season prior to that, 39 goals, 75 points. Season prior to that, 36 goals, 54 points, and then the 52 goal season before that. I don't think anybody's expecting that, but somewhere between 25 and 35 goals on the low and high end feels right. I don't think he's going to have under 10 assists again throughout an entire season. He was dealing with a hand injury, a back injury, vertigo, openly being discussed by his GM as being on the market, available for trade during the season. He played a full 2 minutes less per game throughout the entire season this year. Like, a lot of those factors go into the reason why he only had 30 points in 68 games. And, fresh start with some familiarity there. So there's going to be a little bit less of needing to ease his way into the organization. I just feel like it's going to be a really good year. And then just the right fit. Like, he's going to play top 6 minutes and he's going to play first power play. So he's not losing opportunities. He's probably still going to get 17, 18 minutes a night because he's on first power play in Anaheim. So all the opportunities there for him to have a bounce back year. And if he has 25 goals, 45, 50 points, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine for the 6.5 he's making on a team that needs, if 13 of those are power play goals, there you go. Perfect. You've had a great improvement to the team.
If I'm not being funny, if he only scored 10 goals and they were all power play goals, I would love the trade, because him scoring 10 power play goals would mean we would probably see an extra 20 to 30 power play goals scored by this team.
Yep.
We had such a bad power play. His presence and his ability to put pucks in the back of the net on the power play. Because again, what has been the issue that we've talked about and other people have talked about when looking at the Rangers? They have a great goalie and a great power play, and that's fucking it. Their 5v5 stuff is the issue. Anaheim has a deep but young roster, and they have an experienced head coach. They have a good goalie, a good blue line, good center depth, good forward. Like, again, a lot of this is projection, but as Anaheim fans, we're already doing the internal projection, right? We're looking at these guys as the definitive answers to these problems.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Verbeek clearly seems to think so. Quenneville seems to think so. And the Samueli family seems to think so. So everybody is expecting this young core to be good enough moving forward that bringing in a guy who is a known, not only is he a known power play performer, he's a known playoff performer. So if you sneak into the playoffs next year, if you snake one of those wild card spots, now you feel a little bit feisty. You've got Lucas Dostal, who you trust to be a net, and you've probably got a significantly improved power play, and all your best players are on ELCs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think sometimes as fans, we can get overly cute in our criticisms of team building. We still have $33 million in cap space after the Kreider trade. Dostal needs a new deal. Totally fair. McTavish needs a new deal. Totally fair. But Killorn is up after next year, I think. Let me double check. Killorn has one more year. So Killorn and Kreider are going to come up, are going to be UFAs at the same time. Next summer, Trevor Zegras is up. Frank Vadrano is already seeing...
Gudas and Trouba are also up next year as well.
Trouba is going to sign... I'm convinced that Trouba will have signed an extension by January.
Yeah, but his eight,
July 10th.
the big 8
but his cap is
off.
going to drop.
Yeah.
He is not going to be an $8 million player next year. Like, we're going to have
Gibson's
to
off
sign
in
McCollum,
2 years as well.
Right, and I don't think Gibson is on this team next year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so much.
So I'm just adding to that. Fowler's 2.5 retained is off next year as well. Like, it's off. It's on for this year, then off the year after that. So there's a lot of space that opens up.
We have so much cap space coming, and yes, there's a chance that we spend $13.5 to $14.5 million per year of cap space on Mitch Marner. But again, if that happens, that's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
that's what you're hoping happens. So, like, it's fine. The cap is going to keep going up. The
It's
cap
going
went
up at $8
$7
million or
million
something in the next
this
3
year.
seasons. Like,
Yeah,
it's
it went from 88 to 95.5 this year. I thought it was only going to be 92.5. It's going to be 95.5.
Mhm.
That's Chris Kreider. And we
Yeah.
still have all the old cap space.
Well,
We
the thing
basically
for
saw the
me,
cap increase by Chris Kreider.
Yeah.
More than Chris Kreider. Like, basically, Chris Kreider, Nikita Nesterenko, and oh no, now we still have the $30+ million of cap space that we were going to have anyways.
Mhm.
What are we upset about? If people want this team to really take a step forward, we're going to have to start spending money, and we're going to have to start bringing in players.
The thing too is I don't see this team being in the same situation you see the Oilers in or the Leafs in, where they're paying 3 guys an exorbitant amount of money. The big decisions the Ducks are going to have to make are either this offseason, next offseason, or the one just after that. And it's mostly this one and next one, because you've got, like you said, McTavish and Lucas Dostal, but I don't see either of them making over 7 on long-term deals.
No, not at all.
So you're fine, because you're under right now. Troy Terry makes the most, and he makes 7. So and it's a long-term deal. That's a great deal for the Ducks. Trevor Zegras next year is an RFA. I can't, unless he comes out with a 100-point season, I can't see him making significantly more than 7. Maybe around 8.5, 9 as a top end.
Maybe.
So you're fine there. Then you've got next season as well, Cutter Gauthier and Leo Carlson. They'll be in the depending on their seasons this year, bridge deal or long-term deal at 7, 8, 9 on around that mix. In a bridge deal, you're looking at probably 4, 5, maybe 6 on the high end, right? So you've got those guys, Pavel Mintyukov, Olin Zellweger, Jackson Lacombe, all next year. Lacombe probably will be on the higher end of those guys, just depending on how things go this upcoming season, but based off their performances last season, he's got a jump on them for a bigger contract. You would imagine Mintyukov and Zellweger a bridge deal. So you're just kind of set up. There's no big decisions, and a lot of that money that you're gonna have to pay to those guys, like we said, is getting offset from John Gibson likely being off the books. Jacob Trouba's $8 million being off the books. Radko Gudas is $4 million off the books. Killorn making 6.25. That's coming off the books. Trevor Zegras getting an extension. If he goes up to 8 or 9, it's not 8 or 9 added to the books, because you're already paying him 5.75 right now. So it's just an additional $3 or $4 million that gets added on to that. So where the Ducks have to add cap right now, they either have it in the amount of cap space they have, or they're going to be freeing up that cap space from players that they've acquired that their contracts are expiring. The Ducks don't really have a really bad contract that's going to hurt them. They don't. Like the bad deals they have are they're either expire next year or the year after that. And presumably they don't give terrible deals to these players we just discussed. Then they're in a great spot. Like they're in a much better spot than 80-90% of the league when it comes to contracts and positions that they're in to sign these players to long-term deals, and the way they're performing right now. It's a really unique situation they're in to be able to develop this team to be competitive for a good 5, 6, 7 year window because of the way they're positioned. I mean, we didn't talk Beckett Seneca coming in on an entry-level contract in the next couple of seasons, where if the Ducks are in the playoffs and making a run at it, how valuable is that piece going to be for them to have him on an entry-level contract for 2 seasons to make a deep playoff run, right? Like they're in a prime position to do this. And even going out and paying Mitch Marner $13-14 million isn't going to handicap them, because they already have $35+ million in salary cap space, or going out and acquiring Jason Robertson and then signing him, I think it's next season or the season after that when his contract expires, to an 11, 12, 13.
Next summer he's up.
Yeah, and signing him to a long-term deal. Like they're in the position where they can still get all these guys under the, in amounts that are fair and fit what they need, and go out and get this superstar. So it's a unique position to be. You don't see too many teams that kind of find themselves in this position. Usually you've got one bad contract that you just hung on to, and it's going to cause problems down the road, and we're talking buyout or this or that. You and I have talked.
Yeah, we traded him to the Blues, so it's fine.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. I mean, that would have been the one, right? That would have been the one that you kind of look at and say, okay,
And
the longer
again,
this goes
like,
on. Yeah.
and again, look, I think it would be easy to say at the start of last season, you could look at the Ducks and say there are 3 contracts that could be a problem. Cam Fowler, John Gibson, and Alex Killorn.
Mhm.
Alex Killorn has been fine. John Gibson has been very good, and Cam Fowler is gone. I don't think Alex Killorn is going to be 36 at the start of the next season. He's not getting another contract. He's going to either... The only way he gets another contract is if he goes and signs a 1-year fourth-line deal with the Tampa Bay, right? And he's just like, screw it. I've got 1 year left in the league. I got 1 year left in me. Let me go do that. Have fun with my guys for 1 more year. Make another push. Whatever. Okay, great. That's a $1.5 million deal. Cam Fowler is gone. I think John Gibson is gone this summer. Chris Kreider, the deal is fine. Again, I didn't like the Chris Kreider deal when they signed it, but they also signed it because of who they thought they were getting. Anaheim, the reason Chris Kreider became available is because he's overpaid. If Chris Kreider's making $5 million a year, he's still on the Rangers. And I think at $5 million, you say it's a good deal. So we're fine. You give up a 3rd-round pick and a prospect that I like, but I don't think should be sacrosanct. And you get a good player on a rough contract who is going to directly impact the one part of this team that needs the most impacting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, man, I'm fine just paying him $1.5 million more. Like, I again, like, the criticisms of the... Oh, here's an even better part. He has 2 years left on this deal. He's only making $5 million a year in real money, and next year it's $1 million in signing bonus. Honestly, again, if you're looking for reasons to be excited, the Ducks acquiring a player with a signing bonus is a net positive. The Ducks are not a signing bonus team. Historically, the Samuelis have not been here to sign big signing bonuses. Now, $1 million out of $5 million is not a big signing bonus, but the point stands. This is them having to cut a check on a specific day for that amount of money, guaranteed.
This is them putting their money where their mouth is. They said that they would be willing to do this.
Right.
And to spend money and to do stuff they haven't done in the past, and they're doing it. And like the thing I want to mention before we move on from the contracts too is even if one of these contracts became an issue and it was preventing you from signing somebody like Kreider, I think is going to be here for the 2 years no matter what. Like you said, John Gibson is probably going to get traded at some point, but we'll use John Gibson and Killorn as the example. If you can't move one of them out and one of them's left on and you need to get rid of one of them, well, you're going to have them this year. So that's fine. They're going to be on the roster. But if you get to next offseason and there's a problem and you're trying to sign Trevor Zegras or you're trying to sign Jackson Lacombe and you've brought in Marner or whatever, and the money's just not working out, right? Like you've Leo's had a really great year, Carter's had a really great year, and the extensions, it's taking up a lot of money. You can either buy one of these guys out or trade them and retain half the salary for 1 year. And you're saving yourself some money there. Like you could get rid of Killorn at half that salary hit to somebody, to a team that needs a veteran presence for 3.3 million. Like it's possible at that point. So you have some flexibility there because he's only going to have 1 year left. It's a rental for a team to go out, and maybe you pay a little bit to get him off the books. There'll be somebody that would be willing to take Killorn for 50% retained for half a season, or you can buy him out. Or somebody be willing to take John Gibson for $3.1 million for 1 season, 50% retained, right? Like there's some flexibility with these deals too, that they're not 4 or 5 more seasons where it's going to create an issue. Like I guess like maybe the only one you could look at and say is Ryan Strome, but even then he's got 2 years left at $5 million, right? Like it's not a problem. None of these deals are 4 or 5 year contracts that are going to hurt the Ducks in terms of trying to get these guys out the door.
If the Ducks were to buy out Alex Killorn next summer, it's $2 million. It's not even 2.1 million. It's just under. It's 2,083,333 for 2 years. So it's $2 million for 2 years if they needed
Yeah.
to buy out Alex Killorn.
If you needed to save $4 million in a pinch, right?
Right.
Like you can do that, and it's not going to hurt you.
It's
and then
just-
it's there's just they have options. It's all on the long-winded way of I'm trying to get to it is none of these contracts are that bad that you can't find some creative way to get out of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, they've got picks this year. They've had picks in the past. They're going to have picks moving forward. They're not going to be able to keep all of these guys. Some of these guys are going to get moved. That is going to replenish the picks and young players, which is, again, bringing in young and cheap talent into the roster. They're going to keep drafting. They're going to have young and talented players. If, again, Terrence Smith is a player I really like and I'm very excited about. If you need to attach Terrence Smith to Alex Killorn to move him, okay, I'm not stoked about it. It's not awesome, but we've got Minchikov, we've got Zellweger, we've got Luneau. Like, we've
Jackson
got
McCone,
dynamic,
yeah.
young, offensive blue liners that can offset the cost. This is why you build up picks and prospects, is so that you can use them in a myriad of ways. Nobody thinks all of these guys are going to play for the team. All you're doing is creating options. And I think there are just so many options that are on the table for Anaheim moving forward that there's just not a lot to worry about. If they have to trade McTavish, people are going to want him. If they have to trade Terry, if they have to trade Zegras, if they have to, you know what I mean? Like, these are players guys are going to want. Teams are going to covet. Even if it's in a reduced role and they're not quite, you know what I mean? Like, again, these are players with clear skill sets that are going to be valuable to other teams if you need to move them. I don't want to move them. That's not what I'm saying. But we're not limiting our options in anything. And I think that's the thing about the way that Pat Verbeek has run this team in these last couple years. He has avoided limiting his options moving forward. All of his moves have, by and large, opened more doors than they've closed. That's not nothing. I think that's a reason to give him the benefit of the doubt in theory, right? Like, we're looking at his past work, we're thinking about what's in the future, and we're going, okay, yeah, this could work. There's reason here to think he's going to get this right.
There's just nothing blatantly awful that you can look at that he's done and say, oh, what was he thinking here, right? Like, I mean, the fact that we're nitpicking.
Deal. That's it. That's the Klingberg deal. And it was a 1-year deal. And we got Nikita.
But you can understand
Kreider.
that, right? You can understand that is it was a 1-year deal. You pay the guy, out the nose to bring him here. The whole plan all along was like, if unless they go on a miracle run and make the playoffs, you're retaining and trading this guy at the deadline, and that's what they did. Like, that deal, the Trouba trade, the Kreider trade is what people are looking at and saying, well, okay, if that's all you're looking at and wondering what's going on with Pat Verbeek, and that's what you have to nitpick at, like, that's not bad, because there are some awful moves that are, like, we were talking about the other day, Trent Frederick to an 8-year, $3.75 million deal. Like, that, these are the types of moves and signings and trades.
He ended up the final
between 3.5 and 4 is what they said. So for 8 years.
What are you doing?
Yeah, like,
again, we're talking about Dallas potentially. Jim Nill is a good GM. He has done a good job. He has consistently built that roster up. And yet, there has been talks that if they can't move Dumba or Lubushkin, they might have to trade Robertson so that they can keep Granlund.
Duchesne, Granlund, and Ben. Yeah.
Like, we're not in the part of this where we have to worry yet. And yes, you want to see people make good decisions on the road to that, but we are. Again, bringing in a guy that people really seem to like. Literally, other than Montreal, who doesn't like Chris Kreider that you've heard? You know what I mean? Like, yes, teams from all the, like, fans from the player or fans. Wow, I can't talk right now. Fans from teams that he spent his career playing against probably hate him. But in terms of everything off ice, he seems to be a great guy. And in terms of his on-ice play, he's been steady and consistent. Like, I'm pretty sure he's going to fit. He finished first. He will have left the Rangers first all time in career postseason goals.
Yep. He was up there in power
Chris
play goals,
Kreider.
games played.
Yeah, he's like top 5 in goals. He's like top 5.
He's
in
an
power
all
play
timer.
goals,
Like
game-winning goals.
top
And
3,
he's
top
never
5
been
in
the
a
best player
ton
on
of
his
categories.
team.
Yeah.
He's never been the best player on his team.
No.
He's just been a really good, consistent player for like 14 fucking years. And now he's going to come to Anaheim, make a difference. And we're annoyed because we didn't get a second round pick. I'm not doing it. You can't make me care about that in a way that should deprive me of the joy that I have for this deal. And again, I have been very critical of Chris Kreider and that Chris Kreider contract at times. That 52-goal year was clearly an outlier.
Yep.
Clearly, this is not Sam Reinhart, right? Where you're like, oh, he's actually that dude in a way I didn't realize. But what you're getting out of Chris Kreider on this team is clearly of significant value to Anaheim.
Yep.
And changing the context of the team changes the context of the player, changes the context of the player's value, and changes the context of the value of the player's deal.
That's what we're talking about with Sam Bennett. Like, we wouldn't pay Sam Bennett 8x8, but Florida paying Sam Bennett, that Toronto, like, that makes sense for them. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't make sense for Anaheim because the fit's not there. They don't really need that type of player. But there are just some players that are worth that amount to the right team, or they fit that team and that makes sense for them. Chris Kreider makes sense for Anaheim, especially for the cost that we were talking about. If it was Carey Terrence in the second, we'd be probably fine with it. It is what it is. Yeah. Like it doesn't, it's not a problem. Like that second round pick at this point with the amount of talent the Ducks have in their prospect pool is not detrimental. It's not like the Stars trading a second round.
The opportunity cost is not a disaster.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to get into the Stars because we talked about them a little bit. We talked about having to trade Jason Robertson, and we have to bring it up because we've talked endlessly about Mitch Marner. I don't think we need to talk more about Marner right now. Not much has developed there, but there has been some developments on the Jason Robertson front, and really not regarding Jason Robertson himself. Just Mason Marchment was traded to the Seattle Kraken today, which freed up $4.5 million of cap space for the Stars.
Immediately gave to Matt Duchene.
They immediately gave to Matt Duchene. And then not a piece necessarily linked to the Stars, just the way it was presented. So Andy Strickland tweeted out that Troy Terry was available and then quickly walked that back because I guess a team source reached out to him and said that no, that's not the case. But in that tweet,
well, it wasn't even walking it back. Like, it was just straight up. The team reached out to me and they said this.
Yeah, which I mean, they're going to. Yeah.
Everyone, exactly, is allowed to say, what else is the team going to say?
Yeah.
So I think it is fair to have your own individual opinion of how notable a source Strickland really is. It is, but like everybody is kind of doing it the right way. Like Strickland was like, this is what I heard. And then this is what I was just told right now. And also, for the record, as you pointed out to me, I was told this by another team. It's not that I heard from someone at the Ducks that they were shopping him. Yeah. I heard from someone else, Troy Terry's available. And then he also sneaks in, and also Ben is definitely going to stay.
That's my point, yeah.
Which you said was like, feels like Troy Terry's name came up in Jason Robertson talks.
Just a little tidbit in there. It's just like, why we're talking about the original tweet is here. Troy Terry is available from Anaheim. Nothing Dallas related, regardless. Mm-hmm. Then the next tweet, which replies to that one, his team spokesperson reached out and says Terry is not available, so we'll see if anything comes out of it. Was told by an individual with a different team. In that the next line, the last line of that tweet is also here. Jamie Benn will return to Dallas. It just feels a little like, well, is that coming from the same place? Is that other individual with a different team, a source from Dallas, and you heard, well, Troy Terry has come up. Yeah, exactly. Like, it could mean nothing, but it's just a really interesting piece that you've just kind of thrown that in there. That okay, well, is your Dallas source telling you that the Ducks are sniffing around Jason Robertson, and either the ask was Troy Terry and they didn't say no, or that Troy Terry came up as an offer, like something, right? Something happened there that it just feels like those are related in terms of the way that was presented.
No, 100%. I mean, and in theory, you know, Jim Nill and Verbeek could have been talking, and he could have been like, "Oh, what about Troy Terry?" And then on the phone with another team was like, "Well, you know, I might be able to get Terry, so you're gonna have to up your offer, you know, blah 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 blah." And that is the only other way that it makes sense that someone else is hurt. Like, I can't look. There's the whole thing of every GM is always analyzing the value of their players at all moments. They would be criminally negligent in their job not to do so. Sure, I'm open to that. I think that's a very good thing to keep in mind. But also hearing Jamie Benn will be returning to the Dallas Stars is its own tweet. You can just add that as its own tweet. Why is that on there with the Troy Terry thing? It just really does feel like those two things are connected in a way that is intentionally made obvious. Not obvious, but made available. Yeah. Because I did not make that connection. I'll be perfectly honest. I didn't think about it in that way. I was just like, oh. But then you pointed it out to me, and I was like, oh, yeah, that's actually exactly how that reads. And, you know, so like So let me ask you this right now. No bullshit. I'm Jim Nill. You're Pat Verbeek. And I say to you, give me I don't want to have to ask for more. Give me your very best offer that you can make for Jason Robertson. What is it?
Terry 10, Hellison, and Pastuov.
That's the best you're willing to do?
Yeah, I'm just trying to I mean, you replace Hellison with Zellweger, and you go Terry, Zellweger, 10, Pastuov, and I think that's probably like the upper tier max that I'd probably do to get it done. So I think anything above that, you're what's the better prospect you're including? It's Terry is the piece. Terry and 10 that's set. So then it's what are you adding to Terry and 10 above that? So you go prospect or a player who can step onto the team. We've talked about Hellison, but then I would say Zellweger. I wouldn't do Minchikov, right? I wouldn't do Lacombe included in that deal. So Zellweger is the next best there. And then you include another prospect there. Well, it's not going to be Beckett Seneca. That's too pricey at that point. So then you go down the list, and it's probably Pastuov because it's not Cutter Gauthier, it's not Leo Carlson, right? Like if it's not Seneca, it's probably Pastuov.
Would you do Terry 10 and Leno?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Because I think that's probably your best offer.
Yeah. Yeah, I loop him in with Zellweger in the same as that. So even I would do probably Luneau and Pastuov as well, with Terry and 10. Just some combination of that.
Here's the thing I'll say. If I'm giving you my best right-handed defenseman prospect, you're not getting anything else. Because fair or unfair, at the end of the day, a right-hand shot still has more value than a left-handed shot on the blue line, especially when in terms of high-end guys.
Especially in Dallas right now, too. I mean, they've got a lot of left-handed defensemen.
They've got Heiskanen, and they've got Lindell, who they're already playing on his
as well. Bichel's a left-handed D as well. So
there's... So, 10 Terry and Luneau, I think I put that on the table.
Yep. I mean, Dallas is
I think I hate it. I think I hate it just a little bit. I think a part of me is like...
It's Luneau. Because we're fine with Terry and 10. We've said that it's Luneau who tips the scales a little bit.
Is there is there a prospect that could be available at 10 that would make you not want to make that trade?
No.
No?
Besides one of the Anton Frondel sliding to 10, which he won't, or Caleb Denier falling to 10, then maybe like you're like, okay, do you feel a little bit bad
Like
about that? But
Martone and
yeah,
McQueen aren't
I'm
good
not
enough
even
for
a
you?
huge Martone fan, but yeah, I mean, if he fell to 10, you'd be like, okay, but
I'm
there's
genuinely
like
just curious.
beyond Schaefer
Like-
and Misa, for me, like I'd consider moving everybody else with Troy Terry to get Jason Robertson now, with the way what this team needs right now, right? Like I really like Michael Misa, I really like Matthew Schaefer, and I probably would take those guys. Beyond that, like I like James Higgins, I like him a lot. I like the rest of the guys at the top of that draft, but those are the two guys. And then beyond that, like I could talk myself into Terry plus one of them for Jason Robinson, because it's just what the team needs right now of an elite player with 100-point potential. That's the last little building block that we have and that we're looking for.
Here's my next insane question. Would you do Terry in 10 for Brady Tkachuk?
It's so tough. Like I'm not as much a fan of Brady Tkachuk, I think, as others. I feel like you probably still have to Terry and 10 for Brady Tkachuk.
Mm-hmm.
He's young enough and he's still going to improve this roster. I'm not as convinced he's as much of an impact player on his own as a Jason Robinson or a Mitch Marner. But if your goal is to go out and get a younger player that is going to impact this roster for a longer period of time and be a part of the new core, then I'm fine with it. I think he's a very good young player, but he wouldn't be above Marner and Robinson for me. I wouldn't be as excited by it. You know what I mean? There'd be I'd be a little worried about the potential outcome, but he's better than Troy Terry. And again, the same logic applies. What the Ducks are getting at 10 at that point, they don't necessarily need as much as they need an impact player in their roster.
Yeah, he's about 6 weeks younger than Jason Robertson, so the age isn't really a factor.
Yeah, it's just like how much of a difference are you seeing with Brady Tkachuk versus Troy Terry, right? Like that's what you're wondering at that point, and what you're. I see a major difference between Jason Robinson and Troy Terry, and Mitch Marner and Troy Terry. I see I don't know for Brady Tkachuk, because his best seasons are good, but they're not 100-point seasons. They're not, right. Like, and again, he provides a lot more to his game on an all-around basis than a Jason Robinson or a Mitch Marner. But yeah, I don't know, man. It's a long way of saying I'd still be excited about it, but I'd have my reservations a little bit.
Yeah, he put up 35 goals and 48 assists in 22-23. And I think you can say that maybe 90 points is on the table if he hits 40 goals, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can say in the right year he hits 40 goals, in the right team he hits 40 goals.
Listen, I mean, the Ducks are a really not fun team to play against if you add Brady Tkachuk to the roster. That's the fun part about it. But
to me, the argument for why you go out and trade Brady Tkachuk and get Brady Tkachuk is we just saw Matt Tkachuk not really have a great postseason in terms of production. Like, I think his production was not as good as you would think of with a caliber player like Matthew Tkachuk. And he still was a major impact on those games because of all the extracurricular shit he was getting into with guys.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that there is a degree to which you can say bringing in that kind of wild card, power forward, agitator, rat player is a huge positive. Like, honestly, it's kind of like what we were talking about today with United and about the idea of adding Emi Martinez, right, as the goalie. And, like, is he worth as much as, like, a better goalie? And it's like, no, not really, obviously. But Emi Martinez does come into the club, and he brings this, like, arrogance and charisma with him, whether you like it or, like, I'm not a fan of his. Like, I can't stand him, but I think he brings this with him. And it's like a net positive because now all of a sudden, all of these guys have this guy behind them who's just like, you understand, fuck them, right? Like, you get that part of it. And that's really valuable. And I think McTavish has some of that to him. I think Trevor has some of that to him. But I do think it's a very interesting thing of like, do we just want to go get a pretty much guaranteed 30 goal scorer? He had 29 this year, and that's because he only played 72 games. He had 70. He's hit 30 each of the last 3 years before this one, and he was a goal away, and he missed 10 games. So, like, I think it's fair to say if he plays 82 games, he gets to 30 goals again this year. And it's just like, it's a guaranteed 30 goals, and it's a very specific style of goal.
Yep.
And it's just something I'm curious about because, like, you know, I think there's something to it, and I think I wouldn't offer quite as much as I would offer for Robertson because I do think, you know,
sure.
Robertson does have that 115-point potential in him. But, like, I would probably pick up the phone and just bother them about it and just be like, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, my only concern with that one is I feel like the Stars are in a situation where they can't almost ask for more, where the Sens are in no need to move a Brady Tkachuk, where
for sure.
I think you would end up having to pay more to bring him in, and that's where it would get
Mason McTavish for him.
So like 1-for-1, yes, but when
Mason
you're talking
McTavish in 10,
probably, but again, like you're not feeling as good about it. Where I'm like, I would have 100% moved Troy Terry in 10 for Jason Robinson. You just feel it doesn't feel the same, right? Like I again, you probably come to the same conclusion at the end that you probably would, right? Like Brady Tkachuk is the more established player now, but there is that, you know, that pit in your stomach about making that trade that you don't have with what we've discussed with Robertson.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably right. Brady Tkachuk's a very interesting name in all of this.
I honestly, I am very, very interested to see the whole Dallas situation is fascinating to me right now and what they're going to do because they have to win. They've made the big move. They've gone out. They've gotten Mikko Rantanen, but they don't have an NHL roster in place, really almost even half an NHL roster in place at the moment in time. They've re-signed Matt Duchene. They've shipped out Mark Schmidt to do so. If you look at their roster right now of NHL-ready players, they have, and these are guys that are signed right now. It's Robinson, Hintz, Rantanen, Duchene, Wyatt Johnston, Tyler Seguin, Sam Steele, Oscar Back. They have 8 players for forwards. The defense is what it is. They have enough, but the forward group is a problem. So they've got 8 of 12. They have nobody in the minors to come up and play. Nobody. They think they had Matej Blumel. I probably messed up that name. He played 7 games. He had over a point per game in the AHL. He played 7 games for the Stars last year. Just was not an NHL player. They've got no top prospects on the way. Logan Stankoven was the next best thing, and they obviously traded him to bring in Mikko Rantanen. They have Jamie Benn.
Bork and Bichelle have already graduated.
Yeah, and getting to Bork, like Bork is RFA. He is a leading candidate for an offer sheet at this point because the Stars have no money to even be able to.
Yes, I'm just saying, like, Stankoven was their next big prospect.
Yeah,
he moved on.
It was those
Maverick
3.
Bork and Leon Bichelle are very good prospects who, you know, are excited. You're excited about having them. But, like, they have already graduated. So there isn't anybody who's a year away, which is kind of what you always want to have. And again, That's impossible. But you would always love to have just like one guy who you're like, oh, he's a year away.
Yeah, their next best prospect is Emil Hemming, and he's still playing in the OHL. He came over from Europe, played his first season in junior hockey, and was okay. Like, he's not close by any means. And even if they somehow he made the roster, they're still short. Like, if we take Strickland saying
he
Ben,
undersized right shot goal scorer?
I believe so. Yes,
I think that's right. I think that's who he is.
Even if Ben comes back,
I was like, I wouldn't fucking do that.
Yeah, even if Ben comes back, they're at 9. So right now they don't even have the cap space to bring him back. So that's the problem they're at now. Or sorry, they have $4.5 million. They have $4.5 million. So most of that's going to go to Jamie Benn. He's going to take a hometown discount, but this guy was just making 8 or 9, and I know he's not going to get that, but I don't see him taking less than 3.5. Right? Like, he's not going to take that much of a cut, and it's going to be a friendly discount, but he's not going to take. So most of that 4.5 is going to go to Jamie Benn. You've got Mikael Granlund, who I think they're going to want to bring back because he was good for Dallas. He could still take a discount to potentially stay in Dallas, but there's going to be teams out there who are going to pay this guy decent money because he was good in Dallas and he was good in San Jose as well. So you hope to bring him back. If you can't, then okay, you've got a top 9 now. Dadonov's probably not coming back. Blackwell, maybe you could get Blackwell if you want as a fourth line forward for 1.5, and then Maverick Bourque. I don't see where you get. So the thing is, where are they getting this cap space from? Because you can ship out Matt Dumba. You get 3.75, and that covers enough maybe to get Maverick Bourque done. So you got Ben and Bourque. You've got 10 forwards, and then I guess you plug in some AHL guys in if you want. But you've let Granlund walk, then you've let Dadonov walk, you've let Blackwell walk. You have absolutely no protection if anybody gets hurt. You have no young players coming up that can step in and make an impact. You left yourself very thin at that point. You can't trade out Sagan. You can't buy him out at this point. It doesn't make any sense. You're not getting rid of Rantanen, Hintz. Duchesne just signed. You're not getting rid of Y. Johnston. So you're not getting rid of Jake Ottinger. So it's Dumba, his 3.75, is Lyubushkin, his 3.25, and it's Jason Robertson with his 7.75. We talked about it today. Like, if you do the Terry trade, Terry for Robinson straight up saves you $750K. If you include Lyubushkin in that, it's 3.25. You've saved $4 million in that.
Mm-hmm.
You still have Terry. Terry replaces Jason Robinson. If the Ducks include somebody like Hellison to replace Lyubushkin, if they include like a Jensen Harkins or a Nikita Nesterenko as a guy who is an NHL player, play on your fourth line. They've now added another roster player to their team. Things start.
Lindstrom's RFA rights.
Yeah, something like that, right? It starts to shape out more. Then the roster looks like Terry, Hintz, Rantanen, Duchesne, Johnston, Sagan, Ben, Granlund, Bourque, Steele, back, Harkins. You've got your 12 guys at that point. And then if a guy goes down, okay, the AHL guy you bring up is filling in the fourth line for a bit, and maybe by the deadline you can make the cap work, get a guy retained for $1 million, $2 million, and try and go run on it. But the Stars, it's so weird. They've gotten themselves in this position that the only way they can get out of it is trading a player like Jason Robinson. And then when you look across the teams that could be interested in Jason Robinson and have a player, because if you're trading him, and we look at the way the roster is now, you need to bring in another top 6 forward. You can't not. They don't have enough. They don't have enough. You have to bring another one in, and he has to make less than Jason Robinson. So that takes off guys we talked about like Matt Barzal. That takes off. I don't have a name on top of my head because we had discussed so many, but it takes off those types of guys, the guys that make more, that could potentially be available. You could maybe pry away from a team, but they make more than Jason Robinson. So then that squashes that side of the deal. Okay, you look at the rest of the teams, and the only names I came up with potentially were Drake Batherson from Ottawa, who's not Troy Terry, and JJ Peterka from Buffalo, who is a pending RFA and is needing a contract, and his contract projected at about $7.7 million. I don't know if he'll sign for that much, but he had a really good season. So let's say he signs for 6.5, $7 million. Is JJ Peterka better than Troy Terry? Are you willing to take that gamble? Are you going to do Peterka in 9 versus Terry in 10? Right? Like, it's just that there's not a lot of options out there where and listen, this is just me talking myself into it.
Peterka has the leverage if you do that. Again, you said this, but like we talked about this too. The thing that makes Troy Terry so valuable is that term.
Yeah.
Like that, the fact that it is that number moving forward, full stop, is so valuable. And like, even if you want to say like with Peterka, you're signing him to a new deal, so you'll have that same level of certainty, you still have to have that contract negotiation, and you still have to probably give him $7.5 million, because like he's gonna have all the leverage, or you're giving him a bridge deal. And again, I'm not anti-bridge deals, but I think if you're Dallas, you would like to avoid that situation because so much of your core is already locked up. I mean, maybe you say, Sagan's up in 2 years, so we sign him to a 3-year bridge deal, and we give him, $5.5 million a year for the next 3 years, and we see if he takes it. But
I mean, and then if you're Peterka, you look at that roster and say, do I 100% get into that top 6 on a nightly basis, right? Like, you probably should, but is that a gamble you want to take when you know somewhere somebody will give you that 7 by 7.5? And if you're Dallas, I mean, you're not going to get the conversations you want before that trade's made to guarantee that he's going to sign a bridge deal with you, right? Unless you're given the permission to have that conversation with the player. And is Buffalo willing to do that? Who knows, right? Like, what's going to go on behind the scenes? There's a lot more moving parts to that one to make work. But really, like, the only 3 names I could come up with, and you came up with another one as well, was Batherson, Peterka, and Troy Terry, and then you'd mentioned Quentin Byfield from the Kings. And it's certainly possible. I mean, he just signed with the Kings, so that would be a little bit tough. And I'm not sure if the Kings would want to move on from Quentin Byfield to go to Jason Robertson, but
they shouldn't. But they're dumb.
Yeah, and also the interesting wrinkle in that is Quentin Byfield was just signed, but he was just signed by Rob Blake, who's no longer the general manager of the LA Kings. So if the new GM comes in and wants to make a splash, well, maybe that's the way you do it, right? Bring in a California kid to the team, and it costs you Quentin Byfield. But then do the Kings have the rest of the assets to make it work? Do the Stars value Quentin Byfield significantly more than a Peterka or a Terry?
No bullshit.
Right?
No bullshit. How much more than Quentin Byfield are you actually asking for if you're Dallas?
It depends on how much you believe in him. I think you and me both believe Quentin Byfield would be the premier asset among Terry and Peterka, but he's less certain in terms of what you're getting right now, right? He's got 2 seasons under his belt of about 50 points, so I still think you're asking for more.
Is he not already better than Troy Terry, considering that he's a center?
I don't know if he's a center yet. I would say, and the Stars don't need him to be a center either.
No, they don't.
Yeah, so
but
I don't know.
He can play center.
He can, yeah. I don't know if that value holds as much to the Stars, who have Hintz, Broughton, and Johnston, Sagan, Duchesne, Granlund, Ben, and Maverick Bourque, who all have and can play center. I get what you're saying. I think in another scenario, 100%, that would add extra value to it. I don't necessarily think it does in the case where the Stars are no shortage of players who can win faceoffs, and a team that has shown they will do that. They will split duties. Rotten played center multiple times for the Avalanche with Nathan McKinnon down the middle. He can do that for Hintz. He can do that for Y. Johnson if he needs to. So I don't think it plays as much to it. I think where you look at it is he makes less. He's got 4 years on that deal, I think Byfield does, and he's 22. Right, so there's the potential there. I think right now Troy Terry's probably the better player, but going at the end of this season, it could be nowhere close, right? Like Byfield has that potential, and it just if you're Dallas, are you willing to gamble on that, right? Like, are you in a position where you'd rather gamble on what you think Quentin Byfield would be versus what you know you're going to get in Troy Terry, right? So that's
Right.
the question, and that's the
All right.
intriguing one for me is Byfield. So
All right, because we're just here. I'm just going to do this, and then we can
yeah,
move on.
yeah.
If you're LA, would you do Byfield and Brant Clark for Jack Eichel right now? If it meant Jack Eichel would sign an 8-year extension immediately?
I mean, listen, if you're LA and what they're saying they want to do, you might as well, because they're trying to go and win it now. I think it'd be incredibly
Short-sighted.
bold, yeah, and short-sighted to do so, because Byfield, I still think Quentin Byfield is going to be exceptional, and it pains me to say because he's with the Kings, and I still think Brant Clark's a great player, but
that's the thing. I think the potential on both of them is so significant, but at the end of the day, right now, Jack Eichel's the one that's an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
And you're like, I get another 2 years of Eichel and Kopitar?
Yeah. The Kings aren't patient. They want to run and they want to win.
That's fucking terrible.
With Kopitar and Doughty. So you look at it this way. Okay, you're trading your future replacements for Kopitar and Doughty for a shot at it with Eichel now, and Eichel will still be a part of that team when they're gone. But then you know what I'm saying? Like you're without that. So,
well, what you're doing is you're trading for the guy. You're trading away the guy that you hope can take over in 3 years as a number one center for a guy you know will be your number one center for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
The reason you trade for Eichel is because it immediately takes pressure.
Yeah.
Off of Kopitar.
I mean, in an ideal situation, Byfield becomes Eichel. So if you're saying it, and then the cost to go 3 years in the future, if everything turns out the way you want it to, is Brant Clark. I don't think it's the worst deal you could make. It's certainly, you're putting all your eggs in one basket to run at and try and win now. And I don't think the Kings are a Jack Eichel away from being a Stanley Cup team. But it feels like a move.
Doughty has enough in the tank.
No.
That's the part that hurts, is giving up on Brant Clark. Like,
yeah.
Who probably should run your first power play unit next year.
Yeah. I mean, the way the Kings have gone from, well, we're going to rebuild to, no, we're going to take a run with Doughty and Kopitar again. And where most of those prospects that we hailed them for drafting didn't hit. And as you sent me today, the
Bro, think about this. Think about how much different this is if they don't make the Fiala trade and they're just like, oh yeah, we have Brock Faber playing for us right now.
Yeah.
Like, there is a world where you're looking at like Faber and Byfield as your next 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, it's wild the way that they've gone about it, and then guys like Turcotte not hitting and Kaliev not hitting, and like it's just a long list of and guys we all wanted and praised them for drafting at Keel Thomas and other, like the list is long. Helga Grands, like they drafted a lot of guys that people wanted at those spots.
Rob Blake did a good job.
Yeah, and they just didn't hit. They just didn't hit, and
it happens, man.
But everybody thought they would, so you can't say it's necessarily poor draft. It's just bad luck. Like those guys just did not turn out, or it's bad development in the organization, whatever you want to call it. They just did not turn out for the Kings, so they pivoted and they're going to make another run at it. But it puts them in this weird position because you do have two really good the players who did hit, and Byfield or on their way to hitting, Byfield and Brant Clark. What do you do with them now? Because you are trying to make another run at it, but these two guys are part of the future more so than they are part of the present. So what do you do with that, right? So,
yeah. All right. Anyways, I'm sorry for turning our Ducks podcast into a Kings podcast, but like,
yeah. I mean, with the Dallas stuff, it's just interesting. So,
yeah, and exactly, and I think sometimes it's important to like I'm not being funny when I say this. Like, think about other teams from their point of view, because I think it helps when you get back to talking about the team you like to be able to evaluate it from having experience, like looking at different situations and stuff like that mentally. Like, it's just good for your brain to like do that. And so, like someone mentioned today, the idea of San Jose basically just taking every first round pick they have for the next 5 years and offering it for Connor McDavid. And I just wanted to die. The idea of McDavid and Celebrini I'd fucking die, bro.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. That would suck so hard.
I mean, we all know McDavid's not accepting that trade because he wants to win now, and he's not going to go.
No. I understand. It just was one of those things where someone was like McDavid on the Sharks, and I was like, I don't need that. It's bad.
Nobody needs that. Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. It was just it was like you said, very interesting to look at it from the Stars' perspective. I'd love to get a Stars fans' perspective on this, because just looking at this roster now, having 8, presumably 9 when Ben signed, just forwards for the roster right now, NHL forwards, and then having no cap space to do anything beyond that. And then again, you make the easy move, which we talked about was dumping Dumba is the easy move if you can get it done, to just bring, because Dumba and a little bit left over from that 4.5 is not enough to sign Granlund. Like, Granlund's going to want 4.5, 5.5, maybe 6, right? Like, that's what he's going to want. That's what he's probably going to get on the open market from a team. I can't see him getting any less than that. So dumping Dumba just as the only move isn't enough to bring back Granlund. So then if it's just Ben and Bork that you get covered, then you're still 2 forwards short. And then you're running a really thin roster for the rest of the year. And God forbid Hintz or Rantanen get hurt, you're jumping Sagan up to the first line, right? Like, you don't have a lot of options right now. So I feel like they're going to get in this position where they have to deal Jason Robertson to make something happen. And again, this is me just being very optimistic and trying to convince myself that the only option is Anaheim. But if I was the Stars, like, if you're dealing Jason Robertson, the situation you're in, you need a top 6 forward back. You need him to be making less than Jason Robertson makes. And you need to be getting other assets in that trade that, like a 10th overall pick, that is going to be fill the cupboards for one of the team's worst, or one of the league's worst prospect pools, or being able to dump other salary, Dumba or Lyubushkin, in that trade as well. And when you look at all the boxes and all those parameters, the Ducks check off every box of that list and being able to get that done. So we'll see. I mean, we did this last podcast with Mitch Marner, and I talked my way into thinking the Ducks were the only option for Mitch Marner. So it made sense to do this podcast with Jason Robinson, just so I know one of them, or I hope one of them will happen.
You gotta love it. That's the way to handle it. I'm just like, it really is just crazy how Dallas went out and, like, they fucking chose Mikko Rantanen. They just said, we're going to take Mikko Rantanen over Jason Robertson.
Yeah, and whether they thought about it or not at the time, the tunnel vision of saying we need Mikko Rantanen and not really thinking about what the consequences are going to be this offseason. It almost feels like that, because they are scrambling right now. They have 10 days, 11 days to get this done now, because they can't go to July 1 and let Granlund hit the open market if they want to bring him back. They can't go to July 1 and risk somebody and having no cap space available and risk somebody offer sheeting Maverick Bork and not being able to match it. Like, they can't go into that scenario, because then if you go past July 1 and Granlund goes somewhere else and Bork gets offer sheet and you can't match it, but then you can't trade Jason Robertson, because you won't get enough in return to be able to, and the cap space you save from that, to be able to make it work for. So they have 11 days in my mind, at least, and the way it looks, they have 11 days to figure this out. And the outcome that seems like they're going to land on is they're going to have to trade Jason Robertson. It's going to be an interesting 11 days because, I mean, the Mitch Marner stuff, it might not be figured out on July 1st. And from what everybody said, that it could take a week into free agency for him to finally make his decision on where he wants to go. It doesn't feel like it's going to be a July 1 thing. Like, he's going to take his time and decide. This one feels like it's going to be done before free agency. And you would imagine, if you're the Stars, if it's including draft picks for this year, before the draft. So that gives us the draft's next weekend. Like, that gives us a week, a little bit over a week. A week from today for me, but a week, in a couple hours, a week for you. So, yeah, I mean, it'll be an interesting week upcoming to see what happens. But I do feel like we're going to see that situation come to a head, whether it's Robinson out the door or the Stars dumping more cap in Lyubushkin or Matt Dumba. And the first domino fell today with Marchment going to the Kraken.
Yeah.
It's not a fun time to be a Stars fan, that's for sure.
I'm just looking at it, bro, and it really ultimately boils down to if they didn't fucking have that Sagan deal.
Yep.
It would be such, and
it handicaps 9.65 or something like that.
8.5. And the Dumba and the Lyubushkin deals are bad, and you don't want to have those. You certainly don't want to have both of them. I think you can say one of them is not the biggest deal in the world. But having both of them is bad. But man, you look at their other deals and it's yeah, dude, Mikko Rantanen is a $12 million player. Rupe Hintz at 8.45. Yeah, that feels reasonable to me. That's a guy who probably should be in the Selke conversation more years than not. Wyatt Johnston at 8.4 for the next 5 years. Yeah, man, he's 22 years old. He seems like he's going to be really fucking good. That works. Mason Marchment at 4.5. Nah, that's not a deal anymore. That's not on their team anymore, so you have to worry about it. Matt Duchene, 4.5. Yeah, I'm fine with that deal. He fucking led the team in scoring last year.
Yeah.
Sam Steele, 2.1. Yeah, that's what a third liner costs. That's fine. Miro Heiskanen, 8.45. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Essa Lindell, 5.25. Yeah, it's just
Sagan. Yep.
Well,
if you've got if Sagan's 9.8 is
a fourth
not there,
liner on the Ryan Sutter buyout.
Yes, that
is basically a fourth liner. That's basically your 12th man right there, and that was a stupid contract the moment they signed it. So
1.4 million helps them. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it helps them a ton right now.
That's a player. That's the thing. When we're talking about a roster that is this talented and is contending at this level, consistently talented, contending, that's a roster player, and that does matter.
Well, yeah. So that if you have that available right now, instead of 4.5, you have 6 or you have 5.9. You could potentially bring back Granlund with that. And then you can head into July 1 knowing that Jamie Benn's probably not going to walk anywhere else, and that you can take your time with that one and take your time on trying to find a destination for Dumba and for Lyubushkin.
Mm-hmm.
And
exactly right.
Right? You have a little bit more flexibility there, but Granlund's not going to sign for 4.5. I can't see it happening. So now you've got to move quickly because Granlund's not a guy, I don't think, who's going to wait around on free, and not a guy you probably want to wait around on July 1 and get offers that you can't match, right? There are going to be teams that will pay him more than you'll be able to afford, and at some point he's going to make a decision, and I don't think it'd be Dallas. So they've just the Sagan deal, the Suter extra amount that they've got to pay for this upcoming season just really puts them in the spot that they're in, because without that, if you're paying Tyler Seguin, $5 right now, and you've got that extra almost $5 million in the bank and no 1.4 from Suter, there's no issues. There's no issues. They just sign the guys they need to sign. Seguin's deal comes off the books in 2 years. They can re-sign Jason Robinson when that goes off, and they are running away with a pretty good looking roster. But they've just been handicapped by 2 bad decisions, and now we'll have to see what they do. It'll be really interesting. But for me, I'm leaning towards like the 75% that Jason Robinson is out the door. I just don't see it. I just don't see what else they could possibly do to make this happen.
Yeah, they haven't left themselves a lot of options, and the option that has the best chance of actually solving the problem, which is creating cap space and also bringing back meaningful assets, is unfortunately that one. And
I mean, you don't even have the assets to even if, let's say, Tyler Seguin would waive his no move, like, you don't even have the assets to go to a team that has a ton of cap space and say, we'll give you the moon to take Tyler Seguin from us. You have no first round pick this year, no first round pick next year, no first round pick in 2028. So you've got a 2027 first round pick, which basically means nothing at this point. You have no prospects. Like, and you can't, the young players you have in Bork and Bichelle, you can't afford to give up. So you can't even, there's no world where even if Seguin waived, that you could move him to a team, because you just don't have the assets to make up for that, them taking that cap hit, right? Like, it's just a nightmare scenario, because, of all the forwards left, the only guy you can move to save money is Robinson. And on defense, the only guys you can move to save money are Lyubushkin and Dumba. And right now, every team knows what situation you're in. So Marchment was different because he holds value. So for Seattle, it makes sense to pay a third and a fourth to get him. And for Dallas, it makes sense to dump his salary. That was a Kreider type situation, right? Like, it's a deal that makes sense for both teams. Dumba, I don't see the value he provides, where you're just going to be able to get him out the door and it's not going to cost you anything to do so. And I can see the same being said for Lyubushkin as well at 3.25. It's very tough to get him out the door and not kind of pay a little bit to do so. And the Stars have a third this year, a second in 2026, and a second in 2027 to try and make those happen. I don't know, man. And teams know that they're struggling too, so it's interesting. It's interesting.
I guess the one thing, like, I don't know what it's like for him, so I'm not trying to, like, speak this in. I'm just going to say it this way. I don't know what his recovery process has been, but Tyler Seguin only played 20 games last year. So there was a significant injury. I'm pretty sure it's his hips. But, like, maybe, like, he's just not ready for the start of the season yet. And so they're like, look, we know we're going to get a month with him on LTIR that can help us figure out this problem. So they're not necessarily in a rush. But yeah, other than that, right?
But you got to be cap compliant going into the season, and they can't for at least the off season, they have to account for his $9.8 million.
No, for sure.
And, like, listen, he played 20 games, but he was good. Like, Seguin was good for them last year. That's the thing too. Like, 21 points in 20 games, he was good. And he was good the season prior to that as well. But he's not $9.8 million good. But yeah, if they could put him on LTIR, that'd be great. But they have to be cap compliant heading into the season. You can't do that in the offseason. You can't go into the season being, that much over the cap and then just pop them on and, oh, we're good. So, yeah.
Right. No, I get you.
Listen, if they can get into the season, like I said, if they make the trade with the Ducks and Troy Terry and everything, and they've got that roster, and then Seguin gets injured, and then they put him on LTIR, that gives them a ton of flexibility at the deadline to go out and try and get some additions to this team. I don't know what they're going to trade to bring those guys in, maybe whoever they drafted at 10th overall. But yeah, I mean, that could provide them some flexibility, certainly down the road, to be able to do something with, and kind of mitigate the time until his contract expires. But yeah, in the short term, their options are to get cap out the door. It's three options. It's Robinson, Lyubushkin, Dumba. That's it. Those are the only three options they have, because they're not moving any of the other guys.
I'm going to change topics on you completely here.
Yes, please. We've talked Jason Robinson to death. So
if it meant you knew for sure that Gudis was gone, would you add Aaron Ekblad? Like if it's Ekblad, Trouba, Hellison, Leno next year on the right side of the blue line, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is so like, how long are we signing Ekblad to, if that's the case, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because we've got young guys in the roster now, we've got young guys on the way. Ekblad signing basically means Trouba's not coming back, right? Like that's
don't know that that's true.
So you've got Ekblad, Trouba, Luneau. So you got to move Hellison at some point, and then you're going Lacombe, Michikov, Zellweger. That's what you're set with at that point.
Yeah, or maybe I trade Zellweger when Solberg is ready.
Yeah. I'm not even
Replenish my
mentioning
prospects,
Solberg.
and now I've got Ekblad, Michikov, Trouba, Lacombe, and Solberg, Luneau.
Where I think it's interesting is if it's Jason Robertson you get and not Mitch Marner. That's where I find it a little bit interesting, because if you're not paying the $14 million to Mitch Marner and you're paying $7.75 to Robinson for 2 seasons, and then when
it's 1 season.
Is it one?
Yeah, Jason Robertson is a UFA or a RFA next summer.
Okay, well you're paying him 7.75 for this year, and then when you re-sign him, it's not 14.
No, it's 9.5 probably.
Yeah, and maybe you go 10 or 11 if he has an unbelievable season. Whatever, right? Like, It's not 14. It's significantly less than 14. So I could see it then, because Ekblad's going to command probably 7.5 by 7, right? Like, that's probably going to be what he would sign anywhere but Florida. I would consider it then. Yeah, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, and you could still bring back Trouba, and then you could run, like you said, Ekblad and Trouba. You could run Luneau and Hellison as cover for the third pair, and then you've got the Lacombe, Minchikov, Zellweger, Solberg. It's a nice mix there. I'm more comfortable with it there because the cap, you're not right against the cap and signing a lot of these young guys we've already talked about signing. And then you're bringing in some more experience to that young blue line. So I like him more there. Yeah, I do. I think if it's Marner, I say no. If it's Robertson, I say yes. If it's just Ekblad, I probably say no. I'm just like, if we're not adding anything, like Ekblad makes more sense to this team if we know that they're going to probably make the playoffs next year, and for them to do that, they need to add an elite forward. Even if it's a Brady Tkachuk, then probably yes, okay, maybe with adding Aaron Ekblad. But I think you need that marquee addition to the forward group before it makes sense to add Aaron Ekblad. If that take makes sense, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't see the addition of Aaron Ekblad on its own enough to make sense, because I don't know this team is a playoff team without adding a Robertson or a Marner for next season.
Yeah, I don't.
And I think you need that to convince Aaron Ekblad to come here, no?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's probably right. I think you need to have a little bit more room ahead of you, because if you're Aaron Ekblad right now, why aren't you not just like, oh no, I'll just take a discount, stay in Florida, and then we'll repeat again next year.
Yeah.
Because everybody's still going to be on the team.
Yeah, or go to a Toronto or a Carolina or somewhere else that has a little bit. If Carolina could pay him
in Carolina,
right? Like, they could pay him the money, and they are in a much better position to compete than Anaheim is right now. So, like, unless you're paying him,
Ekblad top pairing is pretty nice.
Pretty nice. Unless you're paying him more than other teams would. And in the case if Anaheim didn't add anybody that would move the needle for him to make sense for him to come here, then you're having to pay him more. And then I'm not comfortable bringing him in for like 7 by 8.5, 7 by 9, or something ridiculous like that, right? So sure. I like the move, but it has to be like preceded by the big moves we've talked about for it to make sense. But certainly, like, what an offseason that would be, adding Chris Kreider in a trade and then getting Jason Robertson and then adding Aaron Ekblad. Like, you're in the playoffs next year, and maybe not just in the playoffs, depending on how these kids do. You're making a run. You're not a favorite, but you're definitely on the radar.
The thing about trading for Aaron Ekblad is he doesn't really fix any of Anaheim's issues.
No.
What he does is adds another veteran right shot player.
Yeah. And you'd be losing one, right? Like, we're saying we're losing Gudas, right? So
I think you have to move Gudas if you bring in Ekblad.
Yes. Yeah, you do.
And, like, I think probably people would be fine with that because Gudas wasn't great last year, and people really turned on him this year.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, really what you're bringing him in to do is kind of already what you brought in Trouba and Gudas to do, which is to be experienced right shot defenders who are also going to be really physical. Like, I joked about this on Blue Sky, but, like, it really is remarkable that Aaron Ekblad went from dynamic offensive superstar at 18 in this league, winning the Calder because he was putting up points, to straight up gooning it up in the playoffs the last 2 years.
He was unbelievable in that series against the Oilers.
He was great all playoffs, but he's just such a fascinating player because he was an offensive player early on. His defense isn't great, but his skating is, and he's smart, and he's wild physical.
He always, the way he was built, he always should have been this guy. And the fact that it took him this long to get to be this guy is insane.
He looks like a baby Doughty out there. He's not as good defensively, but he looks like a baby Doughty out there. It's wild, bro.
This is the player that when you looked at him in juniors, like, this is what he would become. And then when he came into the league, it was weird to see him be an offensive defenseman that didn't really do anything with his size, and defensively just wasn't that great. So it's funny to see how things have come full circle into where he is now. It's crazy.
It's just like, I think he is a definitive upgrade on Gudas.
Yeah, 100%.
No, and so I think in that sense, if you say we're going to move out Gudas and bring in Ekblad, I say yes. But he, again, doesn't actually solve any of the issues because he's not a great defender. Some of his underlying numbers from the last year show that he is a negative defender. But he is mad physical, and he is a good skater, and he's got some offense to him still, obviously, because he's Aaron Ekblad. And you're like, all right, like, Ekblad-Lacombe's interesting.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really interesting pair. Ekblad, Lacombe, Minchikov, Trouba.
Zellweger, Luneau. Zellweger, Hellison.
That's interesting. I have a lot of time for that.
Yeah.
Have a lot of time for that, which is weird because I didn't think that would be where I was on it. But like,
but you think again
that very specific thing, and then again, like you said, you go out and you add Robertson, and now you're saying, okay, we went out and added a guy who like could compete for a Hart Trophy, like he's got that level of offense to him.
Yeah.
A veteran who, again, like, I'm just going to be ridiculous about that. You would basically go out and you'd be like, we're getting Jason Robertson, who's a guy who can compete for the Hart. We're getting Chris Kreider, who's a guy who can compete for the Conn Smythe. And we're getting Aaron Ekblad, who was in 3 straight Stanley Cup finals, won 2 of them. And in theory, again, on his own, could possibly compete for a Conn Smythe because he's got the story, he's got the narrative, and he's got the offense to score 2 or 3 big goals over the course of a Stanley Cup final. And all of a sudden, everybody's like, oh, well, obviously, that's the guy who did it. Like, that's a crazy summer. That might be the best summer possible.
Yeah, it is.
I think I would be willing to spend real things to make that happen.
We talked about it, and I think I asked this question maybe a month ago. I said, "Who's the best right-handed defenseman the Ducks could like trade or add in the offseason?" We talked about guys like Erik Karlsson and a few others who are available, and like it came down to is the only option really was Aaron Ekblad of who they could add in free agency or trade. In free agency, luckily Aaron Ekblad is a pending unrestricted free agent if he makes it to July 1. But yeah, like it's a very interesting scenario because it only makes sense as a whole, because adding Aaron Ekblad without Jason Robertson doesn't make sense. But certainly makes sense when you do have Jason Robinson because, like the team's not significantly better with Aaron Ekblad over Radko Gudas. But when you've added Jason Robinson and now you're saying you're a playoff team that makes a run, well, then everything else, now it makes a lot more sense to add Aaron Ekblad over Radko Gudas, right? So the whole thing, the whole package as a whole together with Kreider, Ekblad, Robinson, like it really doesn't get much better than that. But it has to be those three. Like I said, it can't be Kreider, Marner, Ekblad, because then I feel like you've put yourself a little bit in a cap bind because with how much you're paying Mitch Marner, and then you're paying Aaron Ekblad around $7 or $8 million, and now you've just kind of shortchanged yourself a little bit for the future in terms of locking some of these guys down. So it really is that specific scenario. But man, that would be that would make things really really exciting for next season to be able to. And I mean, Pat Verbeek would be coming more than true on his word by saying that he was looking to make this team better and adding a goal scoring winger and a right shot defenseman, going out and getting and helping with the power play, going out and getting Chris Kreider, check, Jason Robinson, check, Aaron Ekblad, check. So yeah, I don't know, man. I think we're slowly getting just delving into insanity here. Every podcast we started with saying we're gonna add Mitch Marner, then we're gonna add Mitch Marner and Jason Robinson, then we're gonna add Jason Robinson and Chris Kreider. Now we're gonna add Jason Robinson, Chris Kreider, and Aaron Ekblad.
Yeah, man, we're on fire. We're living the dream over here.
Yeah, it's the only thing we can do.
All right. Well, we've talked for like way longer than we thought we were going to tonight.
Yeah, it's how it always goes, man. We almost made it to 2 hours. We didn't even talk about the Panthers winning the cup.
I was going to say, so like, I have to be honest with you. The only downside to the Stanley Cup final is that now Seth Jones does technically have a Stanley Cup ring.
Yeah. Well, and Perry's lost 5 of the last 6, which sucks.
I don't care. Don't care.
That's so heartless.
It's
like,
bad luck.
There's no way you
and I
don't.
feel bad for him.
Okay, so you care a little bit. You feel bad for him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Again, here's my thing. He doesn't need to be doing this. He's 40 years old and he's clearly insane. He's doing this because he loves to do this, and he's getting this far every year. He's got a Hart, a Richard, and a Stanley Cup ring. And five him and Scott Niedermayer in the four Chips Cup. I think there might be one other player who's out in that. But like, all he's really doing is validating the length of his career.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, I would love it if he got another one. I'd be very happy for him, but not on that fucking Oilers team.
This is the true dream. It's Kreider, Robertson, Ekblad, and Corey Perry. That's the true. And we make a run to the Stanley Cup Finals again. He makes it 6 out of 7 years. That's the true dream right there.
Did you imagine like a Kreider? Like, it would be like, so you would have to go like, you know what it would fucking be? It would be Cutter, Carlson, and Perry.
I love that.
And then it would be Kreider, Zegras, and Strome.
I didn't think
or
we
Robertson?
Could get more delusional, but
and then it would be it would be Zegras, Robertson, and Kreider, and then it would be Killorn, Strome, and Vetrano as the third line.
Yeah, I mean, of roster players, you've got Cutter, Carlson, Robertson, Kreider, Zegras, Strome, Vetrano, McTavish, Killorn, Colangelo, Perry, and yeah. So I mean,
That's
you fit him
crazy
in somewhere,
business,
but
bro. That's dirty business.
I mean, you could definitely fit him in there, right? Like you could fit him in there, and if we're talking about like Ekblad making sense, like in the whole package, like it makes sense. Like you're adding a veteran, a guy who's been to 5 of the last 6 Stanley Cup Finals, and
That'd be
a club
such dirty
legend
work.
coming in for his last, presumably the last season of his career, to a team that all of a sudden turned around and looks like they're going to make the playoffs now by adding Kreider, Robinson, and Ekblad. Listen, we talk.
It's 11 o'clock and I haven't had dinner yet.
2 minutes ago, I couldn't have. I didn't know this is where the conversation was going, but 2 minutes ago, I couldn't have fathomed where it could have got more delusional than Ekblad, Robinson, Kreider, and now we've gotten there. I love it. That is my ideal offseason now. It is Robinson next this upcoming week, Ekblad on July 1, Corey Perry July 3 or 4.
Gudas traded at the draft.
Yeah. John Gibson also traded at the draft. I love it. I'm here for it. Let's get it done. Send this to Pat
Gudas
Verbeek.
and the Winnipeg pick to fucking whoever.
Anybody.
Fucking send him back to Florida.
Yeah. They're losing Ekblad. So
Send them, Gudas and the Winnipeg pick. Fuck it, I don't care. I'll give up a second round pick to move the Gudas contract and sign Aaron Ekblad.
Yep. I also want to say I would also do this even if Ekblad wasn't included, still add Corey Perry back to this team with Jason Robertson.
Yeah, I know you would. I would.
There's no harm.
You're one of those suckers.
There's no harm. And if we're saying like you're adding a guy who's been to 5 cup finals in the last 6 years. He's played more playoff games than anybody over the last 6 seasons. Like there's some value to that. And he's a club legend to be around some of the younger players on this team. Like, come on. You can't tell me there's no value.
Look, I'm telling you right now, the only way I'm signing Corey Perry to a contract is if he tells me straight up, at the end of this contract, I will either sign with you again or I will retire. Yeah,
that would be the case. He's not coming back here to leave again. He's not.
I'm telling you right now, I'm not even letting it be an option. I need a verbal confirmation.
He's not playing at 42.
I'm either dude, he might.
I don't know.
He's crazy.
You know what's
he
wild?
Doesn't need to be doing this.
I would have never. You gotta ask me when he left. I would have said there's no chance this guy is going to play into his 40s. Just did not seem like the guy. Now he's just a freak. Like this guy he's going to be 41 next year. And he's coming back. He said he's coming back, whether it's with Edmonton or whoever. I can't imagine him running it back with Edmonton after that, but who knows?
Dude, he said he wants to.
Yeah, shit. Everybody. Connor McDavid said he wants to, but I don't think he wants to stay in
Edmonton. I don't know if that's what Connor McDavid said. I heard Connor McDavid say, what matters most to me is winning. And if staying in Edmonton means I have the best chance to win, then that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, he said straight up, I want to win. I am tired of being a loser.
Bring Corey Perry back, man. It sucked seeing him cry after he left, after he got bought out. So bring him home. Bring him home. Sign Jason. Trade for Jason Robertson. Sign Aaron Ekblad. Go on a cup run.
Eddy.
Get to the finals. Just not lose. You know how? Okay.
3.85 is what we're hearing about Trent Frederick's deal, according to Cap.
Insane.
That's what they have it at. 3.85.
The last thing I want to say: would this be the most beautiful story? It'd be better if Perry had never won, but like championship story. We talk about Hossa and back and forth. For Perry to go 5 of 6 seasons, lose the cup in every final that he was in, to go to Anaheim and win in this upcoming season.
I would absolutely argue it's better that he won it when he did, with Anaheim so young, and then he goes through his entire prime, wins a Hart, makes 2 conference finals, like has a good run, but can't even get back to the finals with Anaheim. Goes away, makes a bunch of finals with other teams, but can't win it. Then he comes back to Anaheim and wins it again is a perfect story. Now,
that is an all-timer. That is like
the
there's
part
nothing better
where
than that.
he gets kicked out of Chicago for a weird thing that people just have decided didn't happen.
I forgot.
Dude, this is what
I forgot about that.
there
yeah.
is a degree to which everybody is also just kind of like, that didn't happen. And it's like,
Does that make the
no, it
documentary?
definitely did.
That makes a documentary. As like a passing glance.
Yeah, as like
a joke.
a redemptive moment for him. But
Yeah.
like,
Did they interview Bedard's mom?
there is. Shut up, I hate you. But like, there is that part of it where you're just like, oh yeah, that's also part of it, and it's completely ignored. And again, I'll be a total downer to wrap this up. It was weird with the Kreider trade. Oh, I really want to play for Quenneville. He is a net positive for this team's ability to recruit talent. And that's going to be a weird thing to get used to. Because on one level, it makes a ton of sense. But on another level, it really highlights some of the issues that people have with like hockey culture as it exists and the degree to which he's gotten back in the league at all, but also players who were around for when that all happened are actively like, oh no, yeah, definitely super excited to play for that guy. Like, it's crazy. Like, it's a weird thing. And we are going to talk about Quenneville a lot, and we are going to not mention that a lot because it's not how it works. But it's still early, and it's still worth pointing out that it is a weird thing that we are going to hear, especially if we have the kind of summer we would like to. Hell, that's the whole thing about the Ekblad rumor.
Mm-hmm.
Someone straight up said
Quenneville wants him.
Ever since Quenneville got to Anaheim, he really wanted to bring in Aaron Ekblad. I think it was Marco D'Amico who was just like, it makes a ton of sense. He fills a bunch of holes for the organization. I don't agree with that part. But, like, he would be playing for a guy who for who he'd already played under. Like, it is a whole thing. And so it's still early enough in the process of all of this that I think it's always worth being very explicit that is still a real thing. And it is part of the kind of reality of rooting for this team right now.
Yeah. Well, if Perry comes back and the Ducks win the cup with him on the team, that becomes the best story in hockey history. For me.
If they win the cup, does he retire?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
what is he going to do after that?
They just like retire him in Getzlaf's jersey on opening night.
Well, yeah.
Because there's no reason we haven't done Getzlaf yet other than they're going to do it together.
Yeah.
They're going to do the jerseys together.
They're just waiting for Perry to retire.
Getzlaf's just waiting for Perry to fucking be done.
Yeah, I can see it.
So,
but yeah, I need this to happen now. But the fact that it's
great fucking summer, it'd be a great summer, and that's again the problem we run into is it's very easy to explain why it all happens the way it does.
If all those moves happen, I'm putting at least $1,000 on the Ducks to win the Stanley Cup.
That's an insane thing to do out loud. Don't do that.
I will.
Please, everybody, don't bet $1,000.
Robertson,
don't bet $1,000.
Ekblad, and Corey Perry. Okay, but like, think
on.
of it this way: there's almost a 0.1% chance that the Ducks go out, get Robertson, Ekblad, and Corey Perry. Right. So I'm just saying, if all those things happen, I'm putting at least $1,000 on them to win the cup.
So what you're essentially doing is viewing all of those things as a single parlay, but only placing your bet on the last leg of the parlay.
Yes.
The statistically
I can't bet on the other
thing
things.
To have happen. No, but that's what I'm saying. You are looking at this and being like, God, imagine if this happened, and then this happened.
Because
and
it's fate.
Dude,
if all those things happen, that means the last thing. Because if it was Robertson and Ekblad, I'm not placing the bet. But if it's also Perry, I'm placing the bet because the only next logical outcome is they win the cup because it's fake. I guarantee you, there's nobody
In that
else in
case,
the
then we
world
don't trade
other
we
than
don't trade
us
John
right
Gibson,
now
by the way.
who has
You don't
talked
trade
about.
John
Yes,
Gibson.
fair. Gibson is a different point. There's nobody else in the world right now that's had this conversation that we're having right now of these three guys joining this team. And if they do, then it's fate. Then we're in a simulation and have manifested this to happen, and they're gonna win the cup. So I'm putting at least $1,000 on that. There's no other explanation. There's no other explanation.
No, that's fair. You know what? I feel silly ever doubting you, Eddie.
Yeah.
I feel absolutely ridiculous.
You can't tell me I'm wrong. So
I can't. That's literally true.
Come mid-July, we'll see if I'm out $1,000 or not.
That would be the most insane.
Yeah. That might be the time the podcast blows up because we'll just put this episode out and then we'll get some sports
Bro, if
betting.
that happens, the podcast is over. We called it. It's never gonna get
No,
better.
dude, it's just starting because we're gonna be covered the entire season for this $1,000+ bet on and the fact that we called all this to happen. So it's happening. It's on.
All right. So who is the dream team to defeat? Is it the Maple Leafs?
Yes. Oh, 100%. Yes. yes. Without a doubt.
Ducks
it is.
over Maple Leafs next year in the Stanley Cup Finals.
God. Yes, and I would be in the box at Scotiabank
Who's the
Arena.
second best team? Who's the second best team? To beat
It's
the
like
whole thing?
Leafs and anybody else. And I don't even hate Toronto like that, but just like we're talking, like
It would be
ideal,
perfect. It would
just
be
like the
perfect.
pure joy of like the last few times I've been in that arena and watched Ducks games, they've got obliterated. And the last time I was in a box with my boss and they lost 9-1, and it was the worst experience watching hockey in my life. So it would just be to be there and to watch the Ducks win a cup before Toronto did in Scotiabank Arena would be amazing. And Corey Perry scoring like a double OT winner to cash my bet. Perfect.
If we could cross over in the wild card and go like Minnesota, Winnipeg, then beat like Vegas in the
No,
Eastern
we're having to
Conference
beat the Kings in round one. Kings in round one, for sure. Gotta beat the Kings in round one. That's ideal.
Kings in round one. Okay, so then it's probably the Knights or the Oilers in round two at that point.
Yeah, either one.
And then
great.
The Stars. Oh yeah, then it's the Stars. In the Western Conference final
Jason
again.
Robinson redemption. Yes.
He has like a hat trick. He goes full ranting about it. And then we beat the Leafs.
And then we beat the Leafs. Yeah. Perfect. And all that's possible because the Leafs are good. Kings are good enough to make the first round. Stars are good enough to make the Western Conference final. And the Leafs are good enough to make the Cup final.
What are we doing? All right, this is it. This is what we want.
That's it, man. The fact that we brought it into the world now means there's at least a 0.001%.
So it's Kings, then what? Oilers?
Kings.
Or Knights?
No, we'll go
Kings,
Oilers.
Knights.
No, Oilers.
Kings?
Yeah, because it's Leon Draisaitl for you.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Beat him in the second round.
Kings, Oilers, Stars,
Leafs.
Corey Perry. So the Leafs would probably still
imagine Corey Perry, Conn Smythe at age 41.
Yeah, so Leafs would probably still be the home team. So they probably win, they have better record in the regular season. So what that means? Game 1, 2, 5, and 7. So yeah,
6.
Either game 5 or no. I want it in Toronto.
Because you want to be in the building.
So game 5 or game 7.
It's a road game 7 for sure. Road game 7. Road game 7.
Corey Perry, double OT winner.
Then this
gets left in the
podcast
building.
would have a very specific thing happen. I would have been at the first Ducks game, or the game where the Ducks won the first Stanley Cup ever for them.
Yeah.
I was in the building for that game 5, and then you would be in the building for that game 7, and we would both have been in the building each time the cup was awarded to Anaheim. That would rule.
Yeah. Gets left also in the building in Toronto.
Sitting in the box, shaking his head disapprovingly the whole time.
Yeah.
Because he works for the Department of Player Safety.
Okay. I love how we've just manifested this. And
These
honestly, part of
Game
it just to
7
stretch this to 2
road.
hours. So we just made
Awesome.
it amazing. I'm just now I have a checklist of all this happening. It's Robertson first, then Ekblad, then Perry, then playoffs, and then
Where do we want Gudis to go? Back to Florida? Is that
Okay.
the
Yeah,
best
sure.
possible thing?
Sure.
Gudis
back to Florida.
to Florida?
Yeah. And it's I can't. I feel like it gets too unrealistic saying Corey Perry's the Conn Smythe winner. Like the whole thing's unrealistic, but like it starts to become like NHL 25. If we're saying
no,
Corey
because
Perry's
if it was
Conn Smythe.
NHL 25, the fucking Conn Smythe would go to like fucking Chris Kreider or Cutter Gauthier. We'd just be like, oh, this guy scores goals. So that's who
we're gonna say, Jason Robertson or something. Jason Robertson, Leo Carlson, something like that. Gotta be
Pavel
like,
Mintyukov coming out party.
no, come on.
Come on, could you imagine Mintyukov having
great,
Makar
it'd be
playoffs?
great, but like, gotta be so good. This is so unrealistic as is. We gotta keep it somewhat in house, like normal. We gotta say Robinson, because if they're making it to the playoffs, to begin with, Robinson's having at least 100-point season. So,
but again, Chris Kreider is Mr. Playoff goals.
yeah, I mean, sure.
Chris Kreider is probably
Robinson, Kreider. Who's three? Who's three? Dostal?
Conn Smythe. Oh, Ekblad could easily win the Conn Smythe.
As number 3, most likely?
No, Dostal's probably number 3. You're probably right.
I feel like it gets muddy after Robinson, Kreider. Could be anybody. But
honestly, it's almost probably Dostal, then Robertson, then
McTavish.
I could see it.
So I'm saying you could see it. That's so yeah.
You see it.
Robinson. We'll say Robinson. All right. Enough of that. We'll be back.
I get to write down the phrase Robo Smythe.
Yes,
That's
please.
a cool phrase to write down.
Please. But expect things to get very busy here if all these signings come true, because we are going to be blasting this episode clips out everywhere that we called it first.
We're gonna be somehow more insufferable than we already are.
And then I'm going to have to play this to Jaden about 100 times to explain why I'm putting over $1,000 on this bet. And tell her, just listen, it's fate. It happens. It's just, you can't not do it. You can't not do it now.
You know what's fucked up is I'm going to Vegas in August. So if this all happens, I could put that bet for you.
And honestly, I would just have to show this to Chris, and he'd probably match the bet. So we have $2,000 down on it as well. So,
he probably would, because he's an insane person.
But like, how could you not if all of this happened? It's fate. Anyway, we'll be back in a week, less than a week, to discuss the draft. Probably this upcoming week, actually, because we have to, because the draft's a week from today for me, almost today for you. So we'll be back this week, maybe sooner if Jason Robertson gets traded to the Ducks. That would be the only way, or I guess if anything happens with the Ducks. But if when that probably happens tomorrow, we'll be back this weekend with an episode. If not, we'll be back with a draft show. I know Chad, we want to get Chad on for that one again, so we're going to try and make that happen if we can. But either way, we'll be back to break down who the Ducks could take at 10, and probably, I guess, we'll look at second and third round as well if we can, a little bit in there. I haven't done as much research. Maybe second round, but we will we'll break that down, and then next after that would be free agency, where we break down the signings of Corey Perry and Aaron Ekblad. So busy times coming up. But
an insane world.
Mm-hmm. And you doubted us, but we made it. We're over 2 hours. We made it to the
I really didn't think we'd get here. I didn't think we'd get here. And then I started talking about bees for 20 minutes, and I was like, we're going to get there. We got it, folks.
We made it. 180. We made it. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll be back soon. And take care, guys.
Bye, everybody.